Welcome to MCRM Show. On today's episode, I sat down with my friend David Lamorte, who's an actor and musician out of Long Island, New York. We had a good time talking about his acting career, as well as a lot of different ideas that both of us have been thinking about for a while. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in.
Take two.
All right.
Man.
All right, I'm recording. Sweet.
Very cool.
How you been doing, man?
I've been doing pretty good. Well, you know, as an artist, it depends on the second or the moment you ask me. It could be great, could be the worst thing, and everything's horrible. And then, do my best to try to catch myself in those when I can. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been doing pretty good, just trying to move forward, whatever that means. But how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I guess we can start off sort of talk about how we met and sort of the conversations we were having that kind of led us to want to do this. We're working on the short film with my brother Patrick called Ayuda. Yeah. And you were playing one of the lead roles, and we kind of got talking about
In the van.
Yeah, talking in a van, and I don't know how cold it was, way too cold. Talking
Not
about
too hot.
personal responsibility and just a lot of different ideas and kind of a lot of the things we've been hearing from Jordan Peterson and different people.
Yeah, I think you were reading Tribe, or
Yeah,
right?
Sebastian Junger's Tribe, which is
Yeah.
a great book. Really, really taught me a lot trying to figure out sort of the human condition and how we interact, and how it seems like a lot of our interactions we haven't figured out how to evolve them past sort of the way our ancestors interacted in the tribal days.
Yeah, and I think also that I think we're afraid to admit the type of connection that we really seek or desire. Even it's like something you're not supposed to admit, or everybody's supposed to be such an individual. And it kind of makes sense even in the way that maybe to connect with the Jordan Peterson of why, the individual is important, but you don't want to just be part of a group. But I mean, it's interesting because it feels good to be part of a group, but there's a fine line where I guess it just gets dangerous because then you're casting other people out of it. And I guess the idea is to embrace everybody, but these are all, there's so many ideas floating around that, I mean, I think we need to do things like this, like podcasts and the short films, or like writing. And you talked about you doing some writing too.
Yeah.
I think these are all like the tools, and these are all the way to seek that connection, or whatever we're trying to get to, because we're obviously trying to achieve or get to something. So it's like being honest, like even just that, like as the first step or something, just wanting to enjoy some Peterson talk about, like just realizing you want more, or you want to be more, that you could be more, which requires responsibility, which is maybe why we don't want to admit what we want. But because I guess then it brings it back to you, right? Like if you're not having those relationships, it's your fault. And then who wants to go with that? That's a scary thing. I'm always dealing with that.
Yeah, it's so easy to look outward and blame other people or situations for what's going on, but you can't control that. So regardless of the truth of that, it's not really a valuable truth in my mind.
Yeah. It's like all I write about too. But like what you just said, I mean, it's like, because I do music too, as part of this, trying to find whatever expression or voice, that's something that's in there, trying to get it out. Acting and music are kind of similar in a way, but I mean that's what I write about, like. And then there's the battle of that, and then the kind of the embracing of the shadow, which is what I've been trying to work on, which is like embracing the masculine, because I think I grew up very like, I I grew up with my mom. I saw my dad on Saturday, so he was like present, not like an absent father or anything. But I think just like, I guess I identified so much with my mother, like that was the person I was with my whole life, and like I end up, I guess, identifying with that person. And I mean, maybe it's politically incorrect to say, not that she's a bad influence or anything, but the way maybe the feminine or a woman would handle something is different from maybe what my natural masculine would do. And then realizing those things, or because I'm always thinking about the masculine and feminine, and I'm recently listening to The Way of the Superior Man. I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
I haven't, no.
David Data, which is a really cool book, The Way of the Superior Man, which I've been into right now. And it's really just, describing the masculine and feminine because we all have both sides. And I think it's all related to everything we're talking about, which is why it's like there's such a confusion in what we want to connect with. And it's like me, I've always liked having crushes on girls and liking them since I could remember, like kindergarten, preschool, whatever. But I think it points to something bigger in a way, like we're seeking out not that connection just with somebody else, but within ourselves, like to complete ourselves with both masculine and feminine and experience both in order to feel fulfilled. And I think people are starting, even if they don't realize, people are starting to wake up to that, even if they wouldn't describe it that way. But I think people are waking up to something that they want to make this full connection. And that's why a lot of things are happening now, like us talking what we're talking about. And Jordan Peterson is huge. Like we talked about him maybe, what was that, almost a year ago?
Yeah, it was a long
That
time
was
ago.
before like maybe his superstardom right now on HBO, on Vice, on Bill Maher, and now he's really blowing up. And something's connecting, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I had a few questions. Kind of, I guess we kind of got off on some stuff already, but
That's how it goes.
yeah, for sure. Maybe start with, because I don't really know how you kind of got into acting and music and sort
Cool.
of your career path and all that. We probably talked a bit about it,
Yeah,
but I'm definitely interested in kind of what
definitely.
started you on sort of this journey and career path that you've taken.
So in the beginning, I mean, music and movies were always just something of like, I don't know, a higher level or something that I connected to emotionally growing up. Music and movies were just huge, like can't even describe. And so I've always wanted to do both of them. So growing up, I mean, I kind of always had a camera in hand, kid with the video camera with friends when we would do things, just bring it with me. Um, we'd do little movies, like, our little skits and whatnot. High school, started taking some film classes because I always wanted to. And we had a video class with Mr. Hodges, who was the man. And he knew how much I dug it, so he he would push for me to like be part of certain projects and hold the camera and do controls on and editing. When I discovered editing, that was like an amazing thing. I thought because growing up I just edited in the camera, stop and then record, and where you record is the next scene.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, you can move this around. This is like a real movie. Like this is crazy. And at the same time, while doing that, I mean, I grew up always music. My friends and my family, my brother, my cousins, and my close circle of friends were always into hip hop and doing music, and hip hop was like the big genre. So as I'm making videos, I start making music videos with them, and so kind of merging those two worlds, which was like the real spark of like, okay, like this is merging, this is what I'm trying to do, like merging visuals and sound and some side of the attitude, which is emotion, but just a specific emotion like being tough or whatever, like, you know, because back in the day it was like being a little more like gangster and, like the tough guy thing, which I enjoyed. And and then college, so it kind of continued. And then as I'm filming music videos for these guys, I always played guitar too growing up. So I used to play like Santana was my stuff. They used to call me D Santana. And that's my Santana guitar back there. So
Nice.
um, that was like my first thing when I started playing Santana and realizing that this is all like connected. The tone of music and Santana has a specific tone. And going into college, but also while going to college, I went to for film, going to film school out here in Long Island at Five Towns College. It's a music school also, but I went for film. Had some acting classes there, um, but at the same time, like not to diss the school, but at the time the theater department was kind of like a bunch of people quit. I don't know exactly why. It's a private school. I don't know what politics or whatever. A bunch of people quit, so they brought on temporary teachers, and it seemed they weren't as invested, maybe as far as the acting classes. The film was, more on point. So I always had interest in acting, and probably that's, who knows, that's really was the first thing I thought growing up, and you connect with the actor on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then but before I got into the heavy acting, which I'll get to in a second, I started doing more videography jobs, everything, Sweet 16s, bar mitzvahs. I filmed for Sirius Radio a few times. That's when I thought I like was making it, you know. I don't know if you ever heard of Tony Touch, but he's like a pretty popular DJ slash artist from the Bronx, and I was on his show, and I knew of him growing up. And then I was on his show on Shade 45, which is Slim Shady's channel, which, I mean, Slim Shady, I mean, that's like, before there was Jordan Peterson, there was Eminem.
Yeah, the cultural movers of our time, for sure.
Right? And so I just kept going with that, and then I kind of started hating video a little bit. I mean, I would do all these gigs, like so many. When I remember, I used to, because I'm from Long Island. I still live in Long Island, which is, about an hour and a half from Manhattan, where I am. So I would drive into the city for these gigs, but the thing is, I was 18, so I had to get in early so I wouldn't have a problem once I got there, because I couldn't get in.
Oh,
So I had to get there extra early, like at 8 o'clock. So I'm going there at 8 o'clock, but the performances don't really start till 2 o'clock. So I'm like there just, and that's when I kind of, there was like a spark there, because in the community I was filming in for those specific gigs, Sullivan Room on Sullivan Street, was house music, and that's a specific culture. It was like communal, people together, maybe some psychedelics start getting in there, and now, like, even if I didn't realize that at the time, like being introduced to like, people coming up to you, hugging you, and it's like, oh, what the fuck's going on? Like,
yeah.
I'm used to like, you go to the club and, okay, are we gonna have to, like, is there a fight tonight? And I never liked, and I was never confrontational that way, like fighting. Not that my friends loved it, but they didn't hate fighting. So the circle I was in, but things would go down, and I never liked that. And that was like kind of my idea of a club. And then I saw this new world, and I, see, I think something sparked where, okay, this camera could take you places in a way. And then in a way, I guess I kind of fell off. I wouldn't maybe describe it that way, because that sounds so like regretful.
Mm-hmm.
But things changed, because I did like my film thesis, which wasn't nothing special. Cool, like film-wise, but story-wise, not much of a story. And I don't know. I even now, I still feel like I'm just finally starting to get to it. Like all those years, there was something I was trying to avoid what I wanted to do, and it's so crazy how you can do so much work and so much busy work that you don't realize it's busy work because you're not aware of it. Like even 4-5 years in college, and it's like, well, I could have been writing scripts like every week and using the camera equipment at my school available for me. That's why you go to school. But while I'm there, all I'm thinking about, okay, I'm school. I got work afterwards. Okay, let me get my work done. And it's like, and I think this is still probably what's hitting with everything with the consciousness, because you have no sense of peace, because you think everything's in the future. It's like, oh no, I'll film. Like I'm not
Yeah.
even worried about that, because once I film, like I'm just gonna make a film and it's gonna be great anyway. So like I'm not worried, because in a way I know I have something inside me to express, which is true, but that's not quite enough. The work still needs to get done. But kind of, I guess, avoiding that with like, should go to film school and make like fucking 30 to 50 films. That should be like what you should be doing. But it's like all these things, and you
Yeah.
just make things harder.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up sort of learning skills but not really using skills. It's like
Yeah.
we're always taking things in and learning things, in school. But I think one thing that school doesn't always teach us is like how do we apply all these ideas? Like how do we apply our creativity and our critical thinking to what we really want to do and what we see as valuable?
Yeah, like now, because and I don't know if this is just like me, but it seems like it's not. But I don't know if it's because of the structure of school. Like you go in, they give you assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't go and ask your teacher for assignment, but that's really more what life is.
Yeah.
It's not like it comes and you're like, okay, here's it, here's my paper, we're good, right? What do you think? And then you bring that mentality to like the world, and nothing happens that way. And if you bring that to your relationships, you bring that to trying to meet opposite sex, you try to bring that to meeting friends. None of that flies. Like, I mean, you have to like be active and aware. You can't just be sitting there and then. I mean, things do come to you. I'm not saying that they don't, but I think the non-activeness, if that's even a way, but I think that's what I experienced a lot, and I'm still experiencing now. I mean, I even see it how it translates to like, say, working now or busy work, what really needs to be done. I mean, whether it's a day job or whether it's a film set or whether it's work collabing with people, I think we do so much to get in our own way. And I don't even know what those things exactly are, but I feel it. I feel like the resistance against myself constantly all the time. And it's like, okay, I like even this, like I had anxiety about this, like, but this is something I want to do. And this is like this is the shit. Like, this is the life right now. This is what we're seeking.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even if we're not getting paid at the moment, but that's like the idea. Like, imagine we're getting paid right now. Would that make me feel better? Would that make me not anxious about, okay, and then, like, say I have, like the film shoot yesterday. I went to Jersey, and then I skipped talking about how I got into more acting, but yesterday I went to Jersey for a film, and glad to do it, but it's just so funny, like the anxiety that's with it, and it's like, this is what I want to do, and I feel like that about so many things. I have to like force myself, and I don't know if it's like that for everybody, but I have to force myself to nearly do like everything I do. It's like,
yeah,
it's such a it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about anxiety, because for sure a lot of people deal with that now, and I think the mentality, at least a lot of stuff that I see, sort of the pop psychology or lack of psychology on social media, there's always these posts, 10 things not to say to someone with anxiety, or 10 things not to do if you're dating someone with depression. And that's actually something that sort of kicked me off on a writing project I'm trying to do now. Was I think that the understanding of how sort of how those emotions work is being twisted a little bit and taking away the personal responsibility from it. Because I mean, I've dealt with anxiety before. I had Lyme disease, which really messed me up cognitively, so I was having some real issues. But to kind of work on that and get over that, I realized I had to start taking steps, like realizing, okay, here's something I don't want to do, a social situation I don't want to be in, I don't feel good. I'm sort of scared how the interactions are going to go, and people look down on me, and I'm not doing well. They're going to notice that, and I kind of realized. I mean, it took a long time to realize that I sort of had to. And it's interesting because Jordan Peterson lays it out perfectly, but it's a truth that I sort of already knew, which is if there's a problem, you have to look really deeply at it and willingly embrace it. And so the idea of, okay, I'm getting social anxiety. Well, I should probably like go to a party then. It's like,
yeah, that's what I do now. Yep. And it's so funny, like, because it is like almost obvious in a way.
Yeah.
Like, to go into those fears, and that's what I want to write about too. That's because what I need to do, and in a way, like, maybe that's what art's for. It's searching or pointing out those things that we need to be honest with, that maybe we're not. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to do, is just be honest with myself, even about my dishonesty, or like the shadow or the ugliness or those thoughts that you're not supposed to have or whatever. And then, or even something like this podcast, which I'm sure compared to when we do one a couple months or something from now, like, man, I was just babbling on, because I know like 10 minutes ago I was just babbling on. But it's like, not to get too critical about that, because that almost doesn't do you any good, but to kind of like, okay, well, I had to go through that.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to acting, so when after college and working, regular construction job, and I was teaching martial arts. I studied martial arts for 11 years, and I taught for 5. And so when I got into acting, which, I broke away a little bit from the martial arts, but that's always a part of me. Getting to the acting, which was a Meisner technique in Manhattan at Matthew Corzine Studios, where I studied for over a year. That's really the art, is expressing. And then, because it's like, they use the analogy, like, say we're having a conversation, and I gotta pee, and all I'm thinking about is how I gotta pee, because that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're having a conversation, I'm not really there with you. I'm really over here or there where I gotta pee. Mm-hmm. And I can't be there with you until I actually go pee, and now I could come back. And I feel like, what I was saying about the babbling or just going through, that's the same thing. Like, it has to the faucet has to run. Like, It has to come out, because due to whatever conditioning, schooling, parenting, whatever, it's so backed up. Like, so much, because maybe we should be running around and screaming, like, in the classroom, instead of like, no. And that's kind of part of why I had to take a break from teaching martial arts, because a lot of it was like, wait, should I be telling these kids to stand still? Like, because it's like, yes, sensei, which discipline, totally get it, necessary to be able to stand there and focus. But at the same time, is this for them? Is this for me? And then to watch myself, like, if they don't stand in line, watch myself get angry that they're not listening to me, and then make them do like push-ups or something. Okay, so now I'm becoming sadistic. And those are like things to catch, like, oh, so this is interesting what I'm doing here. And I'm punishing this kid. Do I even have any idea what the hell I'm talking about? Like, maybe this kid needs to run around for 20 minutes before we even have any conversation about standing still. Who knows what he's coming from? And, and now I'm almost 30, so that's been that long. This kid's say 7 or 8 years old. He's been dealing with it for 7 or 8 years, and we've been dealing with it for decades. And depending on your level of awareness, or when you started waking up, or whatever you want to call it, which could have been from birth, in a way, you have so much backed up. And Jordan Peterson, that's why it makes sense in his self-authoring program, why he makes you list all those things. And it's like with the acting, it's like, it's all about being in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the art of freaking life. But that's like what acting is, and that's why you connect with somebody. And you don't need to be a great critic to see like an actor, like, oh shit, like, you see Daniel Day-Lewis, like, in Gangs of New York, like, oh shit, that guy's like that's really happening right now.
Yeah. So you say talking about things that sort of get backed up, and I think it's sort of like we build sort of these walls. And I was hearing a little bit about sort of like brain development and how we get the grooves deeper and deeper as we get older, and it's kind of like those pathways that we create. Do you feel like in acting you can kind of go back and take from the past and take those difficult things and work through them? I mean, I know there's different techniques, but do you do
Only
that?
only if you're truly prepared, in my experience, can you even talk about tapping into that. For me, which means first the lines have to be down because memorization and performance anxiety is like a huge thing for me. So knowing the lines, that's the first thing right there. And then, it's a lot of it's the energy on set because that's when the moment comes. That's when the magic happens.
Hmm.
And a lot of things, especially like as we're learning the ropes and working with your brother and working with the people I work with now, we're all like kind of learning the ropes. And I think we get very caught up in the technical,
Hmm.
like the shot, this lighting, the stiff, that, and that has to be like on lock or not in the mind for what you're talking about to really come out, to pull from those things. Um, but that's the challenging work, I guess, of an actor is to like you have all this stuff going on, but you have to have your craft really strong to where like the lighting doesn't throw you, and okay, ready, go. We're gonna do this now, but we're gonna do it running, okay? And now do it this way. And I guess it depends on your sensitivity level too. Um, but I guess that's really the whole thing. What we're trying to do, we're trying to tap into that truth, that honest, whether it's from the past, which I have used, like things from the past, or whether it's imagination, thinking, what if this happened, or trying to use that, or pulling from true things that I'm actually going through, or a combination of all of those things, which is maybe the way to go. And it really is a challenging craft because everything reads on the camera, even if you don't think it. And I even because I saw some raw footage or a cut of the film Ayuda, and even just parts, going to be critical of myself the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at Caleb, um, who played the other main character. I'm like, damn, this guy looks so good, bro. And like, I felt like I was there stressing the whole time. Like I'm like trying to memorize my lines, and he was like, all right, cool. And like, he's just like, I think maybe some people naturally have that. Um, Maybe it goes back to that masculine feminine thing that I'm trying to still find. And once I find the right balance, I'll be more like that confident, divine masculine where it's like, oh yeah, cool. And it's it's such a funny thing, because no matter like the corny saying, like no matter where you go, there you are. It's like you're thinking, oh, because I'm gonna be on film set, I made it. No, but I'm still there. Like my anxiety's still there. So yes, to answer, but I guess I'm still there, or
Yeah.
like me, whatever the concept might, or the ego, whatever that self is still there. But I guess that's what I love about it is because it's like now in a way it's like say at my day job, maybe I'm not facing that in the same way or as intense and as I am on set. So maybe I'm growing 10 times in one day the amount that I did 10 weeks at work. Like
Yeah.
when I went to Israel, a 10-day trip. Those 10 days are not like other 10 days. But it's crazy to think like, holy shit, that was 10 days? And like you feel like a growth like huge. So just I guess put myself in those positions or even like these acting roles and like just putting myself in that position knowing like this, like I'm not gonna babble, I'm just gonna probably gonna mess it up. But if I fumble around for maybe 10 years and keep going, then I could be on that level or
Yeah, for
some
sure.
level to justify it instead of like instead of being afraid like I have been since I was 13 years old and wanted to make movies. And if I did that then, not in a regret way, but if I put the pedal to the metal when I was 13, then yeah, I could have been Spielberg maybe at 21, or
Yeah.
you know, be like Tarantino and make Pulp Fiction at 30, or be like Paul Thomas Anderson making Boogie Nights at 27, which is still holds up. And I guess it's like you say, you know, it's good to like not hold on to those things, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
you know, like we're talking about it now, it comes up, which is what I'm all about, because this is, I think, what caused the growth.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about. I mean, we have so many things we want to do, and usually because we have this great desire to, you know, do something difficult and expressive, whether it's, you know, music or martial arts or film, it puts this heavy weight on it that makes it it just makes it seem like it's harder to start than it really is. Because I was hearing on the podcast you're talking about with Jordan Peterson and Aubrey Marcus, he's talking about in Revelation, like God was saying that he would judge not those that were too hot or too cold, but those that were in the middle, more harsh. Because if you go too far, at least you're really trying, you know. But if you're sort of sitting in that middle ground where we're seeking comfort, there's not much you're going to accomplish in a really comfortable situation. And it's interesting starting the show. I talked to Will Witt, he works for.
He looks so familiar to me.
He does videos for PragerU, but he's relatively new, and he was talking that saying that putting himself out there, I mean him, you know, for a pretty big YouTube channel, it was difficult, but it was kind of, he had to get to the point where he accepted that he was going to mess up and fail a lot, and that people are going to see it, but accepting that, you know, that's all right. I mean, if you're going to mess up, you might as well really be working towards something instead of sort of sitting and waiting. And even, so starting the show, that was kind of my idea. It's like, all right, I got to like just do this and see what happens, and be okay with the fact that, you know, gonna make lots of mistakes. Work. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you never know what's gonna go wrong, but it's all good. I mean, it's like Jocko Willink says, you know, there's a problem, good. I was like, I love that. Right. It's like, okay, when you start, and I've heard they talk about neurologically, when you start redirecting your mind, it becomes more and more automatic, where it's like, okay, so there's a problem, good. And you keep doing that enough times, and over time, every time there's a challenge, your mind and your body kind of wake up and like, oh, this is great. This is what we've been working for, been planning for. It's just another chance to learn something and to figure something out.
Yeah, and I think martial arts was a big part, is still a big part of that, for like that journey. I started when I was 16, which in a way is late. So I started when I was 16, and I was pretty solid at the school for like 10 years, like always there every week, especially the first few years there every day. And no other really 16-year-olds ever signed up. So I guess it's an awkward age, like, for people to sign up. Maybe one person that in like 10 years I've seen, and even when I was 16, I was like, I think it's too late. Everybody started at 8 years old, and I was like, I can't do martial arts now. It's too late. And that was 12 years ago. And it's like, I think that was a big part. That's still, you know, a big part of realizing that you can change behaviors, you can learn, you can drill things, you can learn to things become natural, and you can program your brain. And Tom Bilyeu, who runs Impact Theory, who I'm eventually going to work with, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to work with him because he's starting a studio, Impact Theory Studios, which he wants to rival with Disney. and this guy's the man. So Tom Bilyeu, if you want to check him out, he was the founder, one of the founders of Quest Nutrition, and big fan of his because even Quest, like he started because for a true purpose, he wanted to end metabolic disease, and he comes from an obese family. So and now he's doing this, and it's like that's what I kind of want to do. It's like you do something with a purpose, and I think our generation, or millennials, even though most people don't want to realize that we're millennials. Like even people in their 30s are technically millennials, but they talk bad about millennials. They don't realize they're talking about another generation. They're really talking about themselves. Because if you look at the technical numbers, it's like millennials, like I don't know, 24 to like 37 or something. But people don't think of it that way. But I think I think the disconnect in the generations is we, I speak more for myself, maybe it's similar for you. I think, and not to insult them, because every generation grows. Like our generation saw the hard work that our family did and the work, especially the working class, which is where I come from. And then you see the results of still how you become aware of how still miserable everybody is and how unhappy it is. And then people don't want to, like, I don't want to do that. And now you have the thing where it's like the millennial thing where it's like, oh, what do these kids want to do? And it's like nobody wants to realize that everybody's picking up on the same thing, but just from a different perspective, I think. But there's the disconnect. And then the parents or the older generations feel disrespected, like, oh, you think you're too good to do what we did? It's like, maybe we kind of do, and maybe we should. Maybe the generation before slavery should feel better that they're better or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that drastic of what we're talking about, but maybe we should want that. Maybe I should, and I fight with this all the time. I don't want people to be more successful than me. Like anybody. Like unless you're doing like your thing and you're being successful and you're happy with it. So I think like the generation gap.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think at least what I've seen, I mean, in myself and in others is, so we see kind of the past generations and how they operated and their goals and their, it's kind of the kind of written in stone goals, house, car, family, all that, which is great. And that I think that is everybody's goal in a certain way, but I think the path to get there is difficult to find, and I think I think the millennials or us or whatever, I think it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes. So I think sometimes we have too many opportunities almost. So we're not forced into moving all the time. We can stagnate, and I've definitely stagnated in my life, and I can make excuses with illness but a lot of bad choices perpetuated that over time, and I got into this milieu of just, I don't know, almost like self-loathing and depression. And the way to get out of it was to decide to get out of it. It's like, there's a lot of different things you can do. People help me, trying to find purpose. But what really changed for me was deciding that, okay, I'm in this situation, and the only things that I can change are the things that were my fault. And the, and start examining all the things I was blaming on circumstance, and it's like, God, why would you do this? That attitude. It's like, no, it's like, what did I do that put me in this situation? What am I doing that's perpetuating it, and what can I do to get out of it? Because I kind of got stuck in almost like a comfortable depression, as insane as that sounds. It's like,
no, totally,
kind of like finding purpose in things that have no. I mean, there's no goal at the end. It's just perpetuating and kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain exactly because I'm still kind of working it out in my mind, trying to figure out how to find like real, like true purpose, things that are valuable, instead of what's easy and what feels good. You know, it's like that. I kind of was thinking of a theory. I don't know if it's true, but sort of the pleasure versus purpose theory. It's like you have to have a certain balance, and if you push one too far, everything just comes crashing down. And I definitely got to the point where I was like, all right, what's the easy fix? What can make me feel good today? And screw tomorrow, you know? It's like none of this was my fault anyways. And yeah, I don't know. I see with a lot of young people, I don't know, there's this glorification of like depression and anxiety and different things that's, I'm still trying to figure it out. But you see, like with a lot of these young musicians that kind of get caught up in that, like Lil Peep. I don't know if you listen to his music, but he was such a talented musician. A lot of people kind of wrote him off, you know, his appearance and different things. But if you listen to his music, it's like, okay, this guy, when he really got into it, he had a lot. Yeah, he had a lot to say, and I think, unfortunately, the people accused him of sort of glorifying his issues, and I think when we get to the point of, you know, glorifying our problems a little bit and kind of romanticizing them more specifically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it sort of takes us, I don't know, there's a certain like allure to the darkness of our minds and our lives that, I don't know, it's like you're headed towards catastrophe, but you kind of like it.
Because we want to go there, you know? And I think it's probably also, you know, like maybe we didn't get to explore those boundaries in the way we wanted to, you know? Because we're, like, say the boundaries are here, or we think they are, but they're really here, but our whole life we're just in between these. We don't ever go here. So we secretly always yearning, because you know if you could like scream louder, or get more angry, or like cry more, or like we want to feel these things. And it's like, you know, like with the martial arts, the kids, like that's probably what we should be doing like the whole time growing up, is like trying out these different ways of experience, these different ways of consciousness and being. Like, what if I just freak out, but everybody's just constantly judging each other? You're stuck with that for your whole life. Like if you have one freak out, like you're the freak for the rest of your life. Meanwhile, you know, with acting is probably why I was always alert to that in the dark side at the same time, which is like, oh, like you could do that and like let it out and then kind of keep going, but it's like everybody wants that, but nobody wants to give it. Like we all want to be ourselves and not be judged, but we just can't stop from judging everything around us all the time.
Yeah, that's so true. I love what Kanye West said about his experience over the last couple of years. You know, he said it's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. And I was like, I think that's such a truth that can be valuable to people, because we can get caught up in thinking, okay, like I lost it, you know.
It's over.
But a lot of times, when you talking earlier about like the shadow self, it's like when you really look at sort of, you know, your own depravity, like the worst things you could be, and recognize them, you can work to avoid them. I mean, you don't want to, I don't know, it's interesting because you see, some people see those things and romanticize them, and then some people see those things and it's like, okay, I see that that's a part of me, but that's the part of me I need to control. And I think that's where like some elements of structure and purpose and even kind of religion and things can come in. And I don't know, I started looking at religion differently. I mean, I grew up Christian, kind of, I don't know, somewhat traditionally Christian, not super strict or anything. But I think the nature of God was the thing that always kind of baffled me. Thinking of God as a person, which is a thing that got pushed in church a lot. It's like your personal relationship with God. I'm like,
that guy over there.
Yeah, like I can pray and I can, you know, wait for a response, and I can act like I'm talking to someone. But the way I've started to see God kind of more now is like God's the sort of the truth and the order in the universe. And it's like, okay, the Bible describes, you know, he's everywhere, you know, omnipresent, omniscient, all that. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out, but it doesn't seem like, looking at God as a person makes much sense. I mean, I think that was the purpose of Jesus, is that he showed sort of a godly man, like a man seeking the truth and doing the difficult things and trying to bring people up around him, not judging those that would wish him harm, but instead always trying to benefit sort of the greater good. And it's interesting, I was thinking, part of the writing project I'm doing is looking at, so when I was 19 I broke my back, and not like a terrible break, but enough that, this pain and, depression, all the things that come with that, and kind of stopped my athletic career. But I got caught up with the painkillers like so many people do. Yeah, started with pills, and then I was getting fentanyl patches, which, I mean, that's the drug that's killing everybody now.
And they used to give it out like crazy. Now they started tacking down, but they were just handing out pills.
Yeah, I mean, I was like a 21-year-old guy, and they're giving the strongest stuff they make to me. And I'm like, but there's a part of me that kind of wanted it, and there's a part of me that didn't know how serious it was. But getting caught up in that, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out exactly why all that happened, but I can look back and see where I made the choices to go down that road. And I think that's all we can control, is like when no matter how bad we feel or sort of down we are, we always have that free will. But anyways, going back to how I look at the nature of God, it's like I see so many things in the Bible. Like you talk in Matthew, it says, to he who has all, or to he has much, all will be given. To he has nothing, all will be taken. And you realize when you start down that path, it's like everything just sort of cascades in a strange way, where it's like now I look back and I'm like, that reality doesn't even exist anymore for me, even though I lived it. I don't know, it's strange. I definitely lost my train of thought where I was connecting.
No, that makes sense to me, because because it's a truth, and I think the Bible is in a way wiser than could like understand, especially if just looking at it or thinking of it as just like a religious book. But the wisdom that is within that, or even the simplicity of it, that somebody who doesn't have anything. Okay, so somebody who doesn't have anything is a person who feels they don't have anything. Mm-hmm. And just describing that's going to perpetuate. That person who feels like they have nothing is going to have nothing, because that's what they are. You are your thoughts, or I think, therefore I am. And those who have it, they know they have it. And it's not because it's true in external reality, it's true in their mind. I know. Even though the words I know are just words that don't really mean anything. No, you don't know. But just like I know doesn't, I know that if I do this, like, you don't know, but if you think you know, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're kind of, putting your reality in front of you with the way you view stuff. It's interesting looking at different problems, like when you can sort of flip that switch in your mind and take a new perspective, a positive perspective. It's like the world kind of changes. You sort of manifest your own kind of future. I know, like Conor McGregor talks about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like putting this positivity out there and looking at everything, with gratitude instead of focusing on negativity. It's like your relationships that seem bad and seem poor can change just from you deciding, hey, I'm going to look at this differently. And you sort of force yourself to do it, and over time it's like things start manifesting. I mean, basically it's the Pareto distribution. It's like things start manifesting just little by little, and it cascades until, I mean, you're sort of on a path, and it's more difficult to get sidetracked at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's always been natural. And even talking about, like, there's things that that are just kind of obvious, and I think that's one of them. and for some reason it's making me think about when I was younger. I had this Aladdin lamp, and just like little thing, and I really thought that like there was a chance that that was gonna give me what I wanted. Like I remember thinking that, and I or just like say we believe in Santa Claus or something or the Tooth Fairy. Like I think they connect so close because they're part of. There's something in that that's true because I think we intuitively know the manifesting. Like that's such a truth engraved in us that we know. And like I felt that lamp. Like I remember that feeling like that this could actually manifest if I just like rub this lamp, and how exciting that was, and like interesting that the idea and have these words manifesting your reality, how that was so exciting. Like have to take a poop, I'm so excited, kind of exciting. And it's like, and I think it's just like trying to merge those worlds because that's what's natural. And then we have the school side where it's like sit and wait for your assignment. But like we're supposed to like merge those two things at the same time, like the manifesting power of like that genie lamp. That's no way that's ever gonna happen, but there's something in me that's so true about it. And then matching that with like the school part of like, okay, it's not just about sitting here waiting for the teacher to give me an assignment, and like doing those two things. So being active about your manifestations, like it's not enough to just like stay there and wish for it. Like you have to put those things out into the universe, or however you want to call it, or to God, and that's what prayer is.
Yeah.
And gratitude allows you to do that because I think in a way it's so difficult. Like being grateful is like the opposite of anxiety. It's like if you're grateful, you're not anxious because how could they really? It conquers it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're grateful for something, you're not worried in that same way. Like things are okay. Like I'm grateful.
Yeah, if you have a difficult task in front of you, instead of thinking, "Oh, this is terrible. Why am I doing this?" You have that gratitude of, "Oh, I'm happy I have this opportunity."
Opportunity.
And you're still going to I think there's a difference between like being a little bit anxious and then like full-blown anxiety. It's like
Yeah.
a little bit
Oh
of
yeah.
nerves is a good thing.
Right.
But when you let that get out of control to the point where you're getting like a panic attack, it's like
Yeah.
that's like for me I think that's real anxiety. I think sometimes that gets conflated with people. It's like it's okay to feel nervous and be worried about making a mistake. But if you're really thinking, okay, this is just an opportunity. This is my chance to either, I'll conquer this now, or if I don't, I'll come back, I'll look at it, I'll see where I made mistakes, and I can get better from it. And it's like it's all good. We're gonna get better no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who always tells me that, you know, forgiving yourself is always pretty much the answer. And I've been writing a lot about shame and guilt
Hmm.
because I think those are like two, if even if they're the same thing, maybe those are two huge things that are such a part of me or part of the collective consciousness as a driving force, and the reason why, like, maybe you should have a panic attack to experience it, and then that's that. Okay, now you know. And instead of like feeling bad about it, and people like make you feel like, oh, like yeah, oh, that's a panic attack. That'll happen if like you freak out too much. And it's like we kind of, like you said, like we want to go there. We want that. We like seek for that. We seek for that freak out,
Hmm.
that other type of consciousness. We seek for that horrible cry, the one, we seek, fantasizing about your funeral. It's all the same thing. It's like I think that's all part of that natural search or something because you're trying to like. I think we're just naturally trying to break through to something. We
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but there is something that which connected all this and trying to combine manifesting things while dealing with all the shame and guilt, but then realizing, okay, like all I'm doing is shaming and guilting myself right now. I'm doing that to others constantly, and all I want is the opposite, and all everybody wants is the opposite, but I can't seem to do it. It's so crazy. And then just starting to become aware of those things, it does help. Like, or the relationships at work that I don't love, it's like when you put that into practice, like, oh shit, and then things start to change. All of a sudden, maybe you get a different position, maybe a little bit of raise, maybe you get an acting gig, maybe like, and that's what's been happening, kind of like, with like the acting stuff, like, I've been doing film since, over 10 years, and especially during college, it's so funny how perspective is and reality talking about, because like when I was, we call hands on set, or like a gopher, just we didn't even call it a PA because like we didn't have that term. I mean, we did, but we didn't use that because that sounded too professional.
Yeah.
And they don't even want to give you a PA title. But like, it's so funny how it's like a thankless thing. Like you could work like 12 hours solid, 16 hours, and it's like, oh, cool. But like as an actor, I go on set and just like, are you okay? You thirsty? You want anything to drink? Sit right there. And it's funny because I'm the same person but I just changed my position, and now my whole reality changed.
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite, and it's so crazy how we could. And I knew that. I knew that when I was 16. Like, wait a second, this guy's doing that. I'm doing this. I'm getting shit on. But it took me 12 years to act on it, or literally act.
Yeah.
But it took me like 12 years to like try to make something of that, because what? Because like you're glorifying the fact of that you're the person on set that you kind of like it in a way. Like, no one thanks me. You like to complain about it. This sucks. My life sucks. And then you could be in there. You could be in that no responsibility zone. And there's that comfort in that. And it's so funny how all these things, like, we could use them so easily. They're just there for the grabbing. Like, it's like low-hanging fruit. Like, oh, yep. Oh, well, they were mean to me. Oh, yeah, well, I don't get paid enough. Oh, yeah, well, my mom said this. And it's it's so funny how easy it is. And almost in the same way how easy it is to do the opposite once you get past all the shame and guilt.
Yeah.
How a thank you or you're welcome or like a hug or like conversation in a van is like, oh, like I wouldn't have had that conversation maybe if I was just like hands on set, like running around trying to prove to self. But and now look, now we're talking on a podcast because I decided I didn't think this was gonna happen. Like, not thinking that when I'm going to Virginia, I'm thinking, okay, it'd be cool if something happened. Like, besides getting paid to act was like a crazy thing, because that was one of the first things I ever got paid to act in. I'm like, holy shit! And it's like basically the same amount that I make in a day at my other job, and all in the same name of like, I could have did that when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe this podcast could have been happening when I was 18, and I could have been doing it for 10 years. And I think those feelings come up. But like you said, instead of just like running from it, it's like, okay, but I can start now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've been. I feel like I'm just starting. Like, I feel like just now, finally. Like, and that, the film was a big part of it, which is like, oh shit, like, Virginia? Holy shit, they're gonna pay me? They're gonna put me in a motel? Yo, I couldn't tell you how crazy that was. That was insane. Like, that's real. I couldn't, man, I get chills thinking about it. And it's like, maybe because I know, or we know, that that's leading to something. And like, that's what I want to follow.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was scared. And it was weird. And when I first got to Virginia, it got weird because I don't know if I talked to you about this, but there was first thing I see, Virginia's for lovers, right? Welcome to Virginia. I go to the rest stop, and I'm peeing in the urinal. There's a guy next to me. He's literally doing this.
Yeah, welcome to Virginia.
Virginia's for lovers.
Yeah.
Welcome to Virginia. And it's like the weirdest thing, because it's like this small brown, I don't know if he's Indian, Hispanic guy in like one of those jumpsuits. So just creepy looking, like driver, and he does it like three like exaggerated times. And so I'm like, okay, what do I have? I got my like little thing. I'm like, what's gonna happen right now? Am I gonna get in a fight when I'm going to do my first fucking big film thing in another state? And then a dad walked in with his kids, and it's funny how such a relief. Like, oh, the family,
Yeah.
not my family, just the family's there. Oh, things are okay. This guy can't do anything, and he left, and then I felt like kind of a bitch for not saying anything. Should I do what my dad would have did and fucking just go after this guy? Is that the right thing? And I left. He was waiting. When I left the bathroom, he was still standing there. And then I walked to my car, and he's slowly walking behind me. And I just got to the car and left, and then felt weird for the whole rest of the night. When I got to the hotel, I felt weird. The hotel seemed weirder. It seemed cheaper, like than the next night, which was like, oh, like chilling. I was eating like the local food and Fort Royal.
Front Royal, yeah.
Yeah, so I was eating that, chilling, go to the local restaurant, flirt with the girls a little bit, and but it's so funny, like, and I felt bad, like, and I had that all the time. It's like, what should I have done? Should I have hit him? Am I not man now? Did I get bitched out? Should I have? And that's the story, like, since like elementary school and junior high. It's like this guy looked at my girl, like, should I have did something? And then, and I'm thinking, oh, but I have this acting thing, and that's more important. Am I really just telling myself that because I'm afraid, and I don't want to admit how scared I am that, like, of an altercation?
Mm-hmm.
Is that? But then again, is that bad to be scared of an altercation? Shouldn't I be scared of an altercation? Yeah, but we're not taught that, or like, it's not supposed to, it doesn't seem like you're supposed to be scared in that way. Or like growing up, my friends, like seeing them get into all these fights, I'm like, it seems like these guys like it. I don't know if they're faking it. It scares me, and I guess that's why I got into martial arts, and less scared of like the altercation part. But it's just interesting, like how confrontations, and then, am I making an excuse? And you said something before, I forgot what words you used, but I don't know if it was pleasure
Versus purpose.
Pleasure versus purpose. But I have a similar theory that I call self-harm versus self-discipline, which is like knowing what the boundary of which is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, am I staying at this job and pushing forward because I'm trying to push forward and be self-disciplined and try to work hard? Or am I really doing it because I'm just sadistic and enjoying punishing myself? And because it is connected, like even in our mentality of working out, like, oh, you got to get a good workout in, you got to hurt, which if you ask a lot of people, that's not necessarily the good way to go, is to like make yourself sore all the time.
Yeah.
But that's the way we're taught to go, is like, it's supposed to hurt. And it's like, okay, you're taught that, but is that, and then it's like, it's hard for me to find where I'm at, like self-discipline, self-harm. Am I hurting myself and enjoying it? And then, because then you associate hurting yourself with, okay, like this is progress.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's necessarily a truth, and or gauging that spectrum, because it probably is true on some level, being uncomfortable, but then like, where's the line of being uncomfortable and like just being self-destructive? So it's interesting,
Yeah,
playing around
for sure. Yeah, and it's interesting too how much energy we can waste thinking back to like past confrontations and past issues, thinking, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. And it's like, okay, maybe, put a little bit of thought into it. So if something went really wrong, okay, next time I can mitigate those circumstances, get through it. But yeah, it's tough to kind of balance all those types of things, because we have like this survival instinct, and it's difficult to know when are yeah, when are we hurting ourselves? When are we wasting our energy, our time? And when are we doing sort of the necessary, difficult things? It's definitely tough to figure that out. I mean, I think that's part of the journey of life is we're constantly trying to figure out that balance.
Right. Especially because I don't feel like we, not to shit on parenting, everybody does best what they could do, but probably never given that room to do those things growing up where you could gauge or like feel how you're actually feeling compared to like what you're totally supposed to feel. Oh, I drew on the wall. You're bad. What the hell's wrong with you? Oh, am I? Am I? Was I just like drawing? I don't know. Like, and now, why don't I draw? Is that connected? Maybe. And it's like, like, I guess it's just space. Like, we all need to forgive. And even as I'm like saying all these things, it's like realizing all the things that I have like backed up. Like, you don't think about it until you talk about it, like all the regret and like anger towards what should have been or could have been. I could have been this person by now. I'm almost 30. This guy, Nas, was fucking at 19 and made Illmatic. And like Jimi Hendrix was 27, already overdosed by now. And it's like, and that's another we think, we like to glorify that too, which is an interesting thing. And I certainly did and still do. Yeah. I guess it is hard to find balance, whatever that is. Or even if we're supposed to find balance, maybe it's supposed to be out of whack chaos until we find the balance, instead of like trying to put a balance on things that we have no idea what we're talking about. Like trying to control your anger when you don't even know what the hell your anger is. Like you don't even know what it's like to really be angry, and we're trying to control it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have that constant issue with my writing. It's like I'm constantly editing as I'm writing all the time. And it's like that comes from the same impulse where it's like you're so scared to just like let go. And singing, because I studied, and I do music and studied vocals, and even skateboarding is that way. Like I feel it's all connected. You have to let go. Like you cannot ollie unless your whole body leaves the ground. It's not going to happen. And it took me so long to realize that. These things are so obvious too. But like, I don't know. Maybe they're not easy things to find, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting with music. I feel like, I've been recording a little bit lately.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I've realized for me, I don't try to write anymore, like lyrics or melodies. Every once in a while I'll have an idea that'll come to me and I'll, record it on voice memos. But lately I've just been freestyling, because I've kind
Easy style.
Yeah, I've kind of always written a bit that way. But that loss of control where you just kind of, you're firing. I know I was hearing Paul Stamets talk, like people with a stutter don't stutter when they sing. You're firing through different neural pathways, and that was like, it hit me. It's like, oh, that's why I do that, because I am like sort of freeing myself. And then I think the ideas and the lyrics that I've kind of, and even the style of music I've been wanting to do for a while, is now starting to come together, because I'm not trying to control it as much. Like my little brother will write a beat, he'll throw it on, and I'll just kind of go. And sometimes it's terrible, and sometimes it's like, oh, I just said exactly what I wanted to say. I didn't even know I was having those thoughts. It's like but it makes sense. It's like, oh, I just like kind of worked through something that I was trying to figure out. And if I sat down and wrote it, maybe I'd get to it eventually. But it seems like that taking away a little bit of control and just kind of letting yourself flow. It's like, okay, it's like you can really learn a lot and figure stuff out.
You answer your own questions.
Yeah.
By what you said. Like, what the hell did I just say? I think I just figured out why I'm this way. And like, especially like if it's just coming out of you, like you will reveal, like, just like you could say, you could probably, just let somebody talk and you could learn everything about them. It's like it's applying the same thing to ourselves. And when you really let yourself go, you could say a lot of things that, I do it all the time. It's like, you don't know how easy my life could be if I would just accept all the books I read, which is like such a true thing. It's like I read all these books and without applying them, my life could be so easy if I just put these books to use. But it's like it's funny to realize those things. Like, oh, wait a second, there's something I'm trying to tell myself something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think our egos, I mean, we're constantly crafting sort of our own narrative and, how we view ourselves and the world. And it's not always true. I mean, I think a lot of times it's not true. And it's nice to have those moments where you can break down the ego and try to really see, like, what are the facts? Like, what's the truth in front of me? And I've found that
Yeah.
concentrating on that, it's led me to realize a lot of things. Like one time,
That's a good tool. That's a
I
good practice.
I had just smoked a bunch of weed, so I was super high, and I was thinking, and that was back before I probably knew how to use marijuana properly, as a medicine, as a tool. But I started thinking everything in my life would be great if I wasn't so angry. And I was like driving home, and I was like, wait, I'm angry? Like, I don't know why the thought, I didn't think of myself as an angry person. I mean, this was like in the middle of, this terrible depression I was going through, and I was like, I'm I'm angry. And I started looking back at sort of all the moments that I held on to in life. And it was like, oh, I'm mad at myself. It's like you're talking about with confrontation. It's like, I'm mad at myself because I didn't punch this kid. Or another time where I did react, verbally, like screaming at someone or push someone or got into a scuffle or something. I'm like, oh, I'm angry at myself for doing that, but at the same time, I'm angry at this person for what they did. It's like, it's just okay. All these emotions just come down to, I don't know. It was strange. It just came down to anger, and I had no idea of that. But it's like I kind of let my ego fall by the wayside and was like, oh, that's what's holding me back. And I think there's other times in life where that happens, that builds up. I have this animosity towards people, even towards people I love. And
Especially.
yeah, and it's hard to sometimes break down that wall of the ego and the narrative that we put out and that I put out. But I've realized, like, now I can use marijuana as a tool, and like, okay, every so often, don't smoke it all the time, but every so often I smoke it with the idea of, okay, I'm going to sort of meditate on the problems, and I'm going to try to feel that anxiety that used to bother me, that paranoia. It's like, I'm going to embrace that and see where it goes. And like the last time I smoked, like I've had a good upturn in my life the last little bit. It's like I'm making progress. I feel productive. I have some sense of purpose. I'm working towards my goals.
Oh.
But I realized, like, the thought that came into my head is, you're not being loving enough to the people around you. And I was like, I just realized, wait, I haven't like been giving my family hugs lately. Like, it's like, okay, like, it's so easy to like think, okay, I'm doing great. Things are working, but there's something that feels really empty. And it's like, I'm not expressing love to people enough. And that hit me like super hard. And I was like, okay, like I gotta look at that and see, make an effort, say I love you. And I've been trying to do that more, just tell the people around me, it's like, hey, I love you, and give them a hug and
take action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Instead of just hoping it would manifest or thinking about it in your mind for an hour, for a day, or for the rest of the night, taking that energy and putting it into action, which is the whole name of the game, really.
Yeah. It's so interesting how our egos stop us from doing things that are right in front of us. It's like, I'm starting to
on agenda.
Yeah, I'm starting to figure out that it's like, sure, the ego protects you sometimes, but also it just gets in the way.
Yeah.
It's like, kind of
overworked.
Yeah, you kind of have to let yourself be vulnerable, and when you do have feelings of anxiety and stuff, I've realized, like, okay, I'm going to embrace this. Or if I'm feeling sad, like, embrace it as much as I can, be as sad as I can for a short amount of time. And
allow it.
Yeah, I had a psychologist tell me that once. He's like, yeah, man, when you're feeling bad, like, go for it. Like, he even told me, like, if you feel he said, if you feel like your anxiety's building up, like, let the panic attack happen. Like, embrace it. And it's like what Peterson says. It's like you have this problem, but you look at it, embrace it willingly, and kind of like go through that suffering on your own terms. It's like, it's really not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but yeah. And I realized that, getting back to addiction, like the first time that I decided to get off pills, I did the Suboxone treatment. So basically, I didn't withdraw fully. It's like I tapered down. So it's like I got discomfort, but I don't think it was bad enough. It's like I made excuses and thought, like, I don't deserve the repercussions for my actions. Like, I don't deserve to get sick and feel terrible. And I'm, I could blame anyone. I'll blame the doctors who are giving them to me, or whatever. But then, that didn't last. I did the program, lasted for a couple of years, went right back into it, and it was easy to go back into it, which was strange because I thought that would never happen again. I really was convinced I was good. And then when I decided again, like, okay, this is the end of it, I was like, I need to suffer a little bit, which, I don't know, it's like you talk about that self-harm kind of idea. It's like, I don't know, it's like I kind of earned it. And this is sort of the writing project I'm trying to work on, figuring out, like, okay, I earned this suffering and these bad feelings, and if I don't embrace them, like, I'm not going to really figure out, the whole, I don't know, sort of the whole of the experience. It's like, I don't know. It's definitely a difficult thing to kind of wrap my mind around. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want it to be that nihilistic, like, oh, I did bad, I deserve to suffer, but more of that, like, kind of,
the move?
Yeah, kind of like burn away what's useless, let like the past self die. But if you kind of just leave the past self in a coma,
that's not totally honest either.
Yeah, it kind of wakes up, and then, when things get difficult, it wakes up and you're right back to the same thing. Yeah, it's like you
can't suppress.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about, emotions, and was thinking about martial arts, because I think, if you want to, like, sum it up, like, that's like the root of everything. The root of all the problems is the suppressing. Because, like, even if we don't think of ourselves as nature, whatever, natural, which I wrote something the other day saying, if a beaver builds a dam, it's nature, but if a man builds a bridge, it's man-made. Like, it's an interesting thing,
Yeah.
Because we don't think of ourselves as nature. We just we're like, not it. We're like a part of it, but we're not. And it's like the answers are probably, like, we're finding out, is like the answers are all naturally within us and there. And it's like just allowing ourselves to not suppress it. Like, because animals don't know how to suppress. We have the ability to. Because we could outthink stuff and, like, manipulate. And, like, animals can't really do that. Plants can't do that. So I think it's just, like, years of suppression that we're, like, trying to work out. Lifetimes we're talking about. Millennia, generations of that. Of people being, all types of ugly, and all types of slavery, and all types of... most people had nothing, like, at all. Like Jordan Peterson say, like, less than $1 a day on today's money. Like, how's that even possible? Like, that was most of the people. And how does that even make sense? Like, how can I live on $1 a day? What am I going to get? I don't understand how that's, like, that is so crazy. Can't do anything. And then it's like, okay, maybe the gratitude. So bringing, don't suppress and be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to, I don't know, to think that we have it so tough because there's so, everyone deals with a lot of issues, but in our country and just in this day and age, it's like the odds of you having, pretty decent life are just astronomically higher than in the past. But
Yeah, like having food and water.
yeah, but we definitely have a
Our own
culture.
different challenges. Spiritual now.
Yeah, yeah. It's someone said it's something like philosophy is kind of what you do when you have too much.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you have that time to contemplate
Yeah.
sort of your existential crisis and everything, because your life is, you're not fighting for your literal survival all that often. And it's like,
Right.
I think sometimes we would almost benefit from that, like real stress, that life or death stress.
Yeah. Which is probably why we seek that level. We want to get there. We
Yeah,
connect with movies and music, that heightened reality that maybe we naturally know it'll set us back to equilibrium or something. Or like how people are after like maybe somebody close to you passed away, or like after a funeral. It's like whole, like the humbling that happens behind that. Maybe it's not necessary for someone to die for you to feel that way. And
yeah,
these are the type of things we could tap into, because that's in us, you know.
yeah. I think it's always good to. I don't know. It's tough to keep perspective when you get comfortable. It's like we need to force ourselves to have challenges.
Always.
Otherwise, we just kind of stagnate, and I don't know. That's something I've dealt with a lot. And now I'm like, okay, I need to find out, like, what do I want to do, and what's something difficult that I can do today that's going to help me in the long run. Sort of that sacrifice that kind of sucks now and maybe seems unnecessary. It's like, well, I could do something that's a little bit easier, a little more comfortable, but it's like you're not going to reap that benefit. It's like goes back to what I was saying with addiction. At least in my mind, it's like, okay, I have to do this a way that's difficult so that I can reap the benefit in the future. If I do it in a way that's easy, it's like I don't
Back
think
at
it,
it.
I don't think it lasts. I don't think it imprints in your mind, that the lesson that you needed to learn if you let yourself be comfortable.
Yeah. And it's like, and we like that too. We like to earn things. I don't even know if it's necessarily, or it's just because that's what's built into us. Like you have to suffer in order to get there. Like maybe we don't, but maybe it's just built into us. It's like, because that's how we're raised. Like you want something, you gotta suffer for it.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess. And then we take that everywhere we go.
yeah, for sure. Dang, dude, I think we've done an hour, 20 minutes.
That's how we do, bro. We did a
Yeah,
movie.
can probably wrap it up here pretty quick. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. It was
Pleasure,
fun.
man. Yeah. This
Um,
is excited to be doing this type of thing, man. I think you know, I wouldn't normally say this, but I'm gonna force myself to say is that we should both be proud of ourselves. Because I was gonna say you should be proud of yourself, which you should, but to make it even harder of a thing to say, which is weird to say, but we should both be proud of ourselves for doing this. Um, and I think it's the right path, man. Doing this, trying shit, messing up, blabbing on.
yeah,
We'll find it. And with the writing, I'm down. I don't know if you ever heard of a writing date, but maybe we could do something like that, which is basically there's all different. We could make our own variation, but it's like we meet up. It could be like a Skype or whatever. We meet. You talk for 2 minutes, and I just listen about what you're gonna write or what you're gonna work on. I talk 2 minutes, and you just listen, and then we write for like 30 minutes, and then we come back and talk, and then you could kind of repeat that cycle. And it's a way to like, it's something I learned in one of my writing classes, and it's accountability because writers always need an excuse to write, even though it's what we want to do, but avoid it like the fucking plague for
yeah,
some reason all the time, which is like one of those things. So yeah, I'd be down to do that. I'm down to do this more. I'm down to do shit, man.
yeah,
This
for
is
sure,
cool.
man. I think it's great to just sort of, yeah, embrace the process and go for it. Never give excuses. Never, yeah. As Chris D'Elia says, what was he saying? or the guys in the gym, it's like no excuses, never giving up. Like I love that, dude. But it's true. It's like I love that comedy tells us those kind of truths. But
yeah, right.
Anyways, man, thanks for coming on.
Man, my pleasure, man. Thank you. Tell your brother I said hello.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
And I'll talk to you soon, my man.
Sounds good, man. Peace.
Bye.
No one's beside me. I'm feeling alone. Yeah, sitting on this red couch, wishing that someone would hit me on the phone. Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to listen or watch the show, and thanks to David for having the conversation. If you'd like to follow us on social media or follow David, we'll have all the links below where you can like, subscribe, leave some comments. I appreciate all the support from everybody that's been tuning into the show, and we'll see you next time with comedian Joel Jimenez.